What is up, everybody? This is Zen. You're listening to Breaking North Podcast, the podcast where I interview artists and creators about the places that make it or break it, mentalities that keep them creative. Episode 3, baby! Today on the show, Reverend Stephan Sams and I have a great talk. It's late on a Saturday night. There may or may not be a party in the same exact house that we are recording the podcast at. That doesn't matter. There's a little bit of ambiance added to the sound, the quality of the audio. I'm not an audio engineer, but I think it really brings you in the moment. There might be some sirens going by in the background while we're talking, but hey, this is a pretty punk rock podcast. Punk rock. A couple things before we start the show. I have a Patreon now. Patreon.com/Breaking North. So if you feel like leaving me a couple bucks, that'd help me out. You don't have to. If you like and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast, and I guess leaving a review really helps me out. I guess it really jazzes the algorithm if you do that. So if you're feeling generous and you have a couple extra moments, consider doing those things. Anyway, very excited for the show today. I was really giggling as I was editing this podcast. It's a pretty fun one, for sure. As I knew it would be before I even set it up. So anyway, my mom says my intros are too long, so here we go. Here's the show, Mom. Breaking North, episode 3, Reverend Stephan Sams. Let's roll. Steve, welcome to the show. This is Breaking North.
Very nice to be here. And
I am extremely excited to have Stephan Sams on today. Reverend Stephan Sams. He is
non-denominational.
What do you mean by that? What does that mean to you?
That means I don't belong to any specific religion, sect, or philosophy that is recognized by the United States government. And I guess I have my own beliefs, but I don't apply them to my title. It's more of a legal thing. And it sounds good, I guess, like accompanied with blues music, so it just kind of works aesthetically. Mm-hmm.
And so Stephan Sams is an incredible artist, songwriter. I first met him when he was playing with the Redlight District.
That's right.
When I first moved to Santa Cruz, and those guys blew me away. He really blew me away. He is an incredible performer. I've seen him do things on stage that I've never seen anybody do on stage before or since. Whenever we get talking, he's just the most interesting person in the room, in the city. So
that is very sweet. I can't wait to tell this to my therapist.
Great. So I just want to kind of go from the start.
Yeah.
Very start. Where were you born?
Where was I born? I was there the other day, actually. It was Memorial Hospital in Salinas. They asked if I'd been there before, and I said that there was a time in my life where that was the only place I'd ever been.
Or why were they asking if you had been there before?
Oh, I thought you meant when I was born. I was going to say I was, probably breathing, probably very confused, maybe crying a little bit. But yeah, this last time I was definitely less covered in amniotic fluid. Yeah, my mom worked there too, I think, which has got to be weird having your coworkers just stare down the barrel of your gun as like a baby bullet fucking just shoots right out at you.
Right, just pow, just right in your face.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're born in Salinas, and how long did you live there? What was it like kind of growing up there? What are your kind of first memories of that place, that time?
Oh, I actually remember my very first thought of self-awareness. I remember being changed on a clothes dryer by my grandfather, who was browner than me, covered in tattoos, definitely more than me, and gold tooth. I mean, he was basically a pirate. And I remember thinking wow, that's weird that he's changing my diaper. That stinks. Why would he do that? That's really nice of him. And then thinking oh, wait, I don't remember thinking anything before this. I don't remember thinking about myself or where I've been. I don't actually, I can't remember where I've been too much until right now. And then I started, I think I started thinking, and I've never really stopped.
That was just kind of the first recorded visceral memory that you had.
Yeah, yeah. I remember potty training. That was fun. Hemorrhoids popped up. Still working on avoiding those pesky little guys.
The gift that never really stops.
That's right. You know, I'm like a reverse vampire. I give blood. I give blood.
One of my good friends, and she's an incredible person. I'm not going to mention her name. She's like, I want more people to talk about hemorrhoids because that is a thing.
Hemorrhoid awareness.
Yeah.
Dude, my sister in arms.
Yeah, right?
Link us up. We will start a support group.
Yeah, and it's like, what is it, like 60%, something like that?
Yeah,
some crazy fucking number.
All of the chairs in that support group room will have donuts on them, and we'll have Metamucil in the coffee, and the coffee will be decaf.
It's been 4 hours since my last passing, and not feeling good about it.
4 hours, yeah. I actually just evacuated my bowels before sitting down here. That's how prepared I was.
We're ready for this. You're ready for the long haul.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know, this is like a Joe Rogan style podcast, like 4.5 hours. I hope you and your friends are.
So let's talk about DMT.
Let's get into it.
Dimethyltryptamine, baby.
Yeah. So we have a couple first memories. Let's just keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling. What were you like in elementary school? Are you into talking to the other kids? Are you already into music? And what's your family? What kind of good memories do you have of your family? Explain Salinas to me. I really like it.
Oh yeah, that was Salinas. That was okay. So my interface with Salinas, I think, as a child was definitely different than Salinas is generally, I think, because like I was very imaginative, which used to actually get me bullied, but I'd usually kind of work it out to be like more of like a power I used against other people. Like I felt like I valued being weird, so I would like just do things to confuse bullies and they would leave me alone.
I found that I did similar things. I would just kind of confuse other people and then really start confusing myself and realizing that your whole reality is kind of made up in the way that you approach life. Oh yeah. That's a very early on thought that I had.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was, I mean, so, the area of Salinas I grew up in was very, very brown, very, very, very Mexican, pretty poor. It was public school. I mean, we had computers, so I got to play Mario Teaches You How to Type or whatever the name of the game was. So, I mean, we weren't, it wasn't that bad. But it was rough and tumble. I remember, I think by the time I was in kindergarten, I already was desperately trying to date. Which I think, that's emblematic of later issues in my life.
Was that your first girlfriend or?
Yes, her name was Brooke. She was a horse girl. In fact, this is how bad our relationship was. I didn't know that she was a horse girl until I saw her in a parade. Just by chance.
On a horse?
Yeah. I felt cheated on.
Yeah.
Still not over it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
But anyway, yes, let me see. I remember getting an interesting thing happened. I'm just kind of like memories come back to me of elementary school. So like I remember having this I remember having like I said, I was also very into like academia. Like I felt very rewarded for being like the smart kid. I could like read, walk, and talk by the time I was 1 year old, and write. And I think I wrote like right after that. And I was already obsessed with music, but I didn't have any access to it myself. So I'd like turn on Super Mario Brothers 3, and I'd get to like the mini boss with the cool guitar part. I mean, it's not. You could tell it's supposed to be guitar. It's just like, it's obviously like synthesizer, chiptune, whatever.
8-bit MIDI.
Yeah. But, like and then I'd like I had this like guitar, this plastic. It wasn't a real guitar, but it had like strings laid across it as if, you know, like I would be able to play it, but they were just loose and they couldn't do anything. It was just, you know, a mock guitar. But I used to open the window and blast that song from my TV and then pretend I was playing to that song. And I remember also I had like the secret desire. I would hope that someone like saw me and thought I was interesting, like some cute girl saw me and thought I was like interesting. So I think that maybe I think I was also very into like the theatrics early on too, because I would always dress up in costumes. I was born right after, I was due on Halloween, but I was born right after, on the 2nd, the Day of the Dead, which I think is actually more appropriate for my life. But yeah, so I would, let me see, what else? There was, okay. So my mom was single, actually, for the first 4 or 5 years of my life. And I remember I used to think it was my job every day to tell her that she was beautiful, because I was like the only man in her life.
You have brothers or sisters?
I do now. Yeah, my brother came about when I was 6, and then my sister came about when I was 9, almost 10.
So you're the oldest.
I am. Yeah. And then I have another brother that I just found out that I have, but that's a whole nother story we'll get to later.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So you had to tell your mom she was beautiful every day, and
I did, yeah. And then, yeah, so I don't know, my mom kind of raised me to be like a romantic. She like was she wanted, I think because she felt like I was like an extension of her, she taught me to like be well-mannered because she didn't want me embarrassing her. Yeah. So I was definitely very like aware of social things.
Now I feel like a shit child. So Mom, if you're listening, which you probably are, if this ever comes out, you're a beautiful person. You're a beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to Steve's mom.
I mean, I was totally a little shit later on.
Yeah. So you're just getting your points in.
I used them all up later.
I used them.
I did. I used those in high school. Such a little shit. But yeah, I remember. So you know, I was kind of a smart kid, but I was also like kind of weird. And I was into the, you know, like the idea of being weird. Like I felt like it was a power. I would pretend to be a robot all day sometimes, or like my nose would be runny, and people would say, "Why's your nose runny?" I'd say, "Oh, it's just exhaust from the machinery inside my chest."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, I remember there was this one time I got, this kind of set up a pattern for me, but I remember me and this other kid, his name was Marcus, I think, actually. We were trying to play either if it was like Foursquare, tetherball, something like that. And then the kids were like, "No, you can't play. Like, it's already full. It's all of us." Like, you know, and we're like, "Oh man, that sucks." And like, lunch was about to end, and we're like, "What if we just go over there and like act like we're trying to kiss them, just weird them out, then they'll run away, and then we'll be able to have it." So we did, and we ran away, and they were like scared, like their lives depended on them getting away from us. And then when I went back to class, this was in first grade, the teacher, I guess, like she took us aside. Miss Sparks was her name, and she said, "Hey, boys, I heard you were going around trying to like kiss the other little boys. Don't ever do that again." But then there was this one time also, I think it was still first grade, maybe second grade, but all these girls were chasing me, and then like I couldn't get away from them. They held me down and kissed my face. I was like, no, stop. Like I think I just didn't really want my first kiss to go down that way, and I still don't count it as that. But then I went to the yard duty. I said, "Hey, all these girls like chased me, and they like held me down and kissed me. Why didn't you do anything?" She's like, "What? Don't you like that?" So I thought that was a weird dichotomy, a little really hypocrisy.
I completely agree. Yeah,
so that probably formed my. There were a lot of formative things there. I think most of what I learned in elementary school was really how people work and then how to survive socially. Because I remember there was already gangster kids like in Santa Rita Elementary, which is where I went to school. So like there was like street gangs and stuff like that. I ended up. My parents moved. They got like a little bit of money finally, and then like went to they moved to like a nicer neighborhood. They bought a house, which they lost because the housing crash. And I lived around all these like gangsters, and I was like not Mexican enough for them. But then it's before I learned that I was actually Native American, so I was like, oh, that's probably why I don't like like really identify with all like the culture everyone's kind of trying to push on me. But it was just strange. There was like a lot of like macho shit in silliness that I just didn't agree with. I was like more sensitive, more boyish, more imaginative, and I just didn't
completely.
And so later I rebelled against it all, and I guess I still
against
am.
Everything. Yeah,
I guess I still kind of am.
Quick segue. I happened to just search through your Instagram today. A little try that shit wine.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
It's all you.
You really sold it.
You have a good time now.
Okay, I gotta clear my palate. I gotta be a good sommelier.
Sommelier. I saw a picture. I believe it was your great grandfather or great grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah, and enlighten me. Kind of explain that picture. Explain how you found it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, so like my grandfather, when my grandfather passed away, I met that whole side of the family, and then I found out that we were just all Native American. Like that whole side of the family was all like beads, feathers, and shit. Like and they were like, "Oh yeah, have you gotten your rights? Like, have you looked into it? Do you like know your history? Like, and just started informing."
Did you say rights?
Rights, yeah. Like,
so what? Yeah, explain that.
Like scholarships to school, like rights to land, things like that. It's a thing that amongst natives, like, not all tribes get. But some do get reparations. Mostly like the biggest tribes do. I don't think the Apache, which I belong to, and also the Yaqui, which they took in. I don't think they get it. But allegedly.
I mean, they're the biggest. I mean,
they're one of them. Yeah, I know. But I think actually
maybe they're still pissed about stuff.
Maybe, yeah, because we were also like the most warring, towards the
really
American
got their
government.
asses handed to them, but they're really chasing.
I mean, we had like such like dwindling numbers, and we still almost won. Like it was just, and we were fighting a war on two sides with the Mexican revolutionaries and the U.S. cavalry. And
yeah, when I read about Geronimo, I was mind blown. It's like the shortest book ever, and I was like, Jesus Christ, dude! How did this guy?
Gnarly.
How have they not made like? I mean, I think there probably is some movies about him.
Probably.
How have they not made like the most incredible, insane movie? It's like
Johnny Depp plays him.
They'll get Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
It's like, he's got the bead count.
Oh yeah. He's like, I'm a 16th Native American. So that's right. That's more Hunter S. Thompson. It was bad. That was a bad impression.
I mean, I think that's just ingrained in him.
Yeah.
So you found this whole side of your family. It just kind of unveiled itself to you. How old were you when did you find this out?
Oh, well, I kind of always knew we were Native, but I didn't know to what extent. And then I found that out around, I was like maybe 26 or 27. Yeah. Which is when he passed away. And then after that, then I started researching our roots and the history of our tribe, and became really informed on the history of not only indigenous culture in the U.S., but also like the erasure of it, like how much has been just very almost openly, or at least like brazenly snuffed out about Native culture. It used to be illegal for Natives to play music, there was like then there was like a rebellion about that. They performed a ghost song at Wounded Knee, and
what is a ghost song?
So ghost song was it was, there are a lot of different takes on it. Some Natives I've talked to say it was like, a song that they created to like perform for people for money, and it wasn't really like that significant. But I think if anything, it really actually like has a huge significance, because it was like, it became like a symbol of rebellion. They just performed it like at Wounded Knee, like just unabashedly, knowing that intervention was going to come, and then like they got super slaughtered. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. I watched a documentary recently about like how Natives helped form the blues. So as a Native who plays the blues, that was like a very important documentary for me to watch. And Link Ray, that motherfucker.
Yeah, tell me about Link Ray.
Yeah, he was half Native, but he like hide from the KKK when he was like a child, and I mean it was like the beginning of last century, and so but he a lot of people would like hide the fact that they were Native, and they would assimilate in other ways. Like it was like seen as being more dangerous claiming that you're Native because you could go, you could get, like, I mean, they were like sterilizing basically like women, like which is why we have birth control now, pills. And then there was like boarding schools, which only ended in the 90s, where they would like basically like actively teach like these kids U.S. culture, like English, like all these other things, and then like just punish them, torture them if they like showed any signs of culture of their tribes. So Link Ray grew up in the time when it was like, you kind of had to like hide who you were. And I don't know that he like hit it specifically, like as as a point or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do know that his music was seen as being very rebellious at the time. And Rumble, we know. I mean, most people probably know that song. If you've watched Quentin Tarantino movies or whatever,
you were the first person that I heard about it from you. Mm-hmm. I heard the song before, mm-hmm. but I love whenever that song comes out in the context and there's people around. I'm like, did you know? And what's the story with it?
That it was banned from the radio for being too explicit, pornographic, basically inciting violence, but it has no lyrics.
There's not a single word in the song.
So just sonically.
And how many chords is it? It's 3 or 4?
4.
4 chords. And it's simple. It feels good. It's a cool song. Like you hear it and you're like, yeah, that's cool. But back in the day, they used to think that people were just going to start having orgies and start just fucking each other in the streets if people heard it on the radio. It's
that's
like
the only
song. Yeah, exactly. And
when I have my knife orgies, I start off light with Link Ray because we have the harder shit now. Like Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim. I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So made that little segue. So let's go back where we were like somewhere around elementary school.
Oh yeah.
So maybe let's go on to middle school and then talk about your high school. Like what was that era? I was very awkward in middle school and I started doing some weird shit in high school. What was your experience?
Middle school. I was like the type of kid who was like friends with everyone, but I wasn't like popular. So like I knew everyone. And then I ended up getting voted as one of like, I want to say 16 students and 8 teachers, something like that. To go on a retreat to learn how to help people, like other students with their like personal problems. Because there was an assembly in a gym where you had to write down like 4 maybe students and like 2 teachers that you'd go to if you had a real problem. Like, oh yeah, my dad's fucking me and I got to get an ABO or something, like, like something crazy like that. Mm-hmm. Apparently a lot of people were like, I guess I'd go to Steve. So I ended up with a few other students and some teachers going to a retreat in Carmel, and they were like, yeah, teaching us how to like handle, like personal issues. It was called Natural Helpers, I think was the name of the program. And yeah, that was actually probably very formative for me because I was definitely like something that I've always like held as being important,
I would imagine you kind of had to take people's problems and kind of like ingest them.
Yeah.
Figure it out, put yourself in their shoes and see how you could kind of like relate it back to them in some way that would be helpful.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think it's the most rational I ever am is when I'm listening to somebody else like ask me for advice on something, because I think in my own life, like I'm just, I do take my own advice, but like it took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
And so, but I think the most rational I ever am now is like, or just ever have been probably, is when I'm listening to somebody else talk.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I listen to a lot of like, I just end up on it, like self-help sort of things and stuff like that. And then somebody tells me about a problem and I'm like, oh, this is what you do if that happens. But
I mean, there's something, there's something so beautiful about those moments when we kind of confide in each other, because you have to apply like a broad spectrum of like things you've learned in your life, right? If society is what it is because we have learned to work together and therefore have like harbored this like synergy that has allowed us to be greater than the sum of our parts, then there's something to be said about that. So when we like quest for meaning in our own lives and we like, you know, learn things that we consider to be, you know, tidbits of wisdom, those are pervasive, like for those like amongst people, like that's those there are truths that are true to one person, but there are certain patterns in life that we recognize and we know are things that we can go back to remember as like a home base. For instance, when people ask me about things concerning mental health, I remember hearing that mental health isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility, you know, so you have to take care of it. You know, as there are other things like that. For instance, you know, like you can't engage in anyone else's healing unless you're actively engaged in your own. And if your friends aren't actively engaged in their own healing, then they can't actively engage in yours. And if you're friends with people who aren't engaged in your healing, then you have to examine kind of like, you know, what's the theme of the relationship? What's going on? Like, you know, is this ruinous? Is this toxic? Is this bad? Are we mourning together? Like, you know, it's just building perspective is like so important. So like learning, you know, you spend your whole life learning lessons, and to like share them with each other is one of, I think, the heights of evolved thinking, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's really what humanity is, and I think it's just kind of the artistic musician nature in us, but we really like take that as something extremely important. Mm-hmm. You know, I have some friends that even just feels like just being with them just feels like a good maintenance for both of us. Don't really have to like say a whole lot. Don't have to like put out a lot of energy. It just feels good to be near them in their vicinity. And some friends I have that are just like, we're intense with each other. Like, oh yeah, we're like, what the fuck's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Like, and then we talk about it. I mean, it's just like comes down to it in the middle of the night, you know?
You know, I have friends where we're just assholes to each other, and we're not even like, it's not personal, but it's just like, we've been through tough love. Like, I don't know, I'm like sensitive in the rest of my life. With you, I can just talk shit and it's fun. Like, you know, it's just, I feel like, yeah, like there's definitely like, yeah, every relationship suits a different purpose for sure. Yeah. And, yeah, I don't know. It's nice to listen to your intuition and figure out like what like your deep subconscious is trying to tell you about things too, because it's easy to ignore that also.
Yeah, oof, man, and I have done that for too long. I think everybody does to some extent. Mm-hmm. It's really to really just sit there and listen to yourself is hard. So when did you do this retreat? That was sometime in high school where you were helping out other students.
Well, I believe that was in seventh grade, I think. Grade,
wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty heavy, because at the same time, I remember asking my friend, like, dude, I'm jerking off, but like nothing's coming out. And he's like, yeah, just like wait a little bit and you'll start to produce, like, you're just going through it right now, finally. You know, like you're prepubescent, you're going to be pubescent. Don't worry, it'll totally come, bro. You know, and so it's like I'm having conversations like that, while at the same time having conversations with like authority figures that are trying to show me, like, help me memorize the like suicide hotline fucking number.
Do you know it? Do you know it right now?
I don't know. 1-800-SUICIDE. Fucking, I don't.
Just Google it.
Yeah, everyone has like supercomputers in their pockets now. So like, you know, that's. I'm
just wondering how many. I think I know 3-4 people's numbers.
Yeah, I remembered every phone number I know the one time I went to jail.
That'll do it.
And it didn't help anything.
Nope. I believe it. Did you?
Wait, well, I started coming, so I started ejaculating.
When did you start playing music?
Oh, okay, yeah, we skipped over like that. Sorry, I was going straight for the.
This is what I want this to be about, but I'm very curious. Like, I just wanted to have like a recorded memory of like who you are, just like so I can just remember it at some point. Just
nice,
like, this is Steve. This is some things you should remember about.
Right. No, that's beautiful. Yeah. So in 4th grade. So I would always try to like sing. I remember being a child in a bathtub, like just splashing around in a circle, like making just really like maudlin romantic hand gestures, going ay 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 canta no llores, and then my dad walking in on me and laughing at me and being so mortified, just so embarrassed. And
this fucking kid.
Yeah, that was I was like definitely like 5 or 6 at the time. Then 4th grade comes around. I don't even, how old are you in 4th grade? Like what, 8? I think 8.
We'll go with it.
Sure. I remember someone came in to class and after lunch in the middle of the afternoon and said, "Hey, we're taking inventory of who wants to join the music program. You get out of class 2 days a week in the afternoons to practice music, so on and so forth, as long as you can catch up or whatever." And I just fucking shot my hand out. Me. Like, I mean, I wasn't even the type of kid that really wanted to get out of class because I was like so hungry for knowledge. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it did sound enticing, but I had always wanted to learn music. And so the first thing I asked them, I said, "Do you have guitar? Do you have a guitar?" And they said, "No, we don't." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll play drums then." So then I played drums, and they give you a recorder at first. Then give you a drum pad after that, after you play Hot Cross Buns a million times. And then you're nodding like you're like, "Yeah, fuck, I know that."
Yeah, I know that song.
Yeah. Which I tried to play Hot Cross Buns the other day on piano for someone, and they're like, "That's not how that goes." So I don't even remember how to fucking play the first song I ever learned how to play.
What an asshole.
Yeah, I know. Dude, fuck me, right? But anyway, so I started playing drums, and then I pursued that up through high school. I joined my first actually rock band. At the same time I joined marching band, and I'd been in orchestra the whole time. It was really about it. I was always the kid that, like, the kids who were just taking the class just to fucking fuck off or whatever. Mm-hmm. They'd, like, when they were made to pay attention, they asked me, "What am I supposed to do here? Read this or whatever." And I'd read drum notation, which is still the only notation I can read, but
it's the easiest.
It is, but I mean, it's just like, it makes sense. It's
fucking easy.
Right there on the wall.
That was like an 8-year-old that wrote that.
Yeah. 8-year-olds know a lot more than me in a lot of weird ways too. And I feel like I knew the things they knew, but I forgot them. It's weird that we learn so much in school that we just never use and forget. Like a vestigial organ just withers off and rots and never used. It's fucking, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Sure, I remember that because it's a meme. Everything else, fuck, I don't know. Like, cool. I take a lot of acid. I trip out at rocks, but I forget how they work. I don't know.
Could just be the time of night or something, but in my head I was like, maybe they should have like a gym, but like for your brain.
Oh, brain gym.
I was like, isn't that kind of a library? But that's like, it's just as like reading.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's like that. So one of the things I would do during the pandemic is I would play. I would like work out. Then like and then before.
That was like ancient Greece. That's what they did. They like worked out and they'd be reading at the same time and talking it out, and they're just getting fucking ripped.
Yeah. That's
That sounds way sicker.
Yeah. So and then I would play Brain Age on. That's like a DS. Game. I have my like sister's pink DS. And so I would play Brain Age, and I got my age down from like 70 something to lower than my age now. So I feel really fucking good. Yes.
But you want your age lower?
Yes, because that means your brain is functioning like someone.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. It must be like in the 80s or something for me.
No. See, if it was like wisdom-wise, you would want the opposite probably. But I don't know. There are a lot of elders who kind of hang on to really hateful and strange beliefs that are kind of like cognitively dissonant, so I don't know. You can't, age and wisdom are correlated, but not necessarily.
I think in a community base that really is about community and everybody that's around you, which is pretty rare in the world now. Like, I think like having like the wisest person out of a group of 100 people, they probably know some shit. They've seen some stuff. But when you have just like a kind of a worldwide center, and then you have people who are just like saw somebody else on the internet that they hate, they maybe, you know, they're a little skewed in their wisdom and their age, you know.
True, yeah. I mean, echo chambers are real.
Yeah.
It's a positive feedback loop, right? Where you just get affirmations for your like terrible opinions and behavior, and just like, you know, they remain unchecked. Yeah, I think that's more of like I think like a demarcation of intelligence than like most other metrics that I think that like we value, is being able to check your opinions and like weigh out whether or not, you know, they're well formed, because I think a lot of people don't do that. I don't think that's something that's like taught or valued in like Western society, at least like so freely, you know, like amongst people, yes, but that's not like, I don't know, like a practice that they show you in like school. Right. You know, like I don't even think they taught me how to survive in school. They taught me that I should work, but they didn't tell me what to do with money. Like, you know, they didn't how to like do taxes. Like, I don't know, it's very strange.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's weird, the like values that Western society like holds. I think there's a lot that's geared towards like where you're going, and I think sometimes it's okay to like appreciate where you are, you know.
Yeah.
And I think but that's just scratching the surface of, I think, a lot of problems with Western thought. You know, I think
I agree. I think our whole school system needs to be kind of reworked.
Teachers.
Speaking of which, I think I just got a job as a music teacher at a local elementary school.
No way.
I got to learn how to play something other than drums. I was kind of freaking out the other day, and I was like, you know, I could just fully go like Jack Black on this.
School of Rock.
For some reason, the first thing that came to my mind was I want to play Smash Mouth. I want them to like learn Smash Mouth.
Well, yeah, because they have Shrek as like a point of reference. What kid doesn't like Shrek?
I mean, that's like my age. Shrek came out way before any of these, you know, elementary school. Like 15 years maybe before they.
Shrek is timeless. How dare you?
I love Shrek.
Shrek existed before Shrek. Oh yes, it was a twinkle in that writer's eye that just existed before Shrek ever happened. And somewhere in time, I've already died. Somewhere in time, I was born back there. But from up here, it all looks like a fucking, you know, flat circle.
A swamp.
That's right. It looks like a swamp. And I just want people to get out of it.
Yeah.
All right?
The world is a swamp, and I want everybody out.
Yeah, maybe like bang a rich ogre chick like Shrek did, I guess.
Being a rich ogre chick.
That's right. I mean, was she okay? Then that's a problem I have with Shrek, though. Let's talk about this. Okay. This is pressing, because like, was Fiona like an ogre, or was that her curse? It's like, you have to be an ogre, or was it just like, no, you're just some weird monster? But it's just like Shrek happens to find that attractive. Like,
I would need to watch it again, but I think she was like always an ogre, and they just clearly didn't talk all that much.
So do you think she was an ogre first, and then, or did she like, was she human first? She got cursed, and then she like stayed with that form, and like, because that's the ultimate sacrifice.
That is.
She got kind of just like changed, kind of for Shrek, but maybe if I'm remembering it correctly, like the spell wears off finally, and then she just looks like that now, but then Shrek's like, but she's you're cool beautiful. Yeah. You're beautiful to me. Yeah, Let's go back to my swamp and have nasty sex.
It's a great married person, you know? Just like, I still love you, no matter what you look like. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it shouldn't really matter.
Just taking a fucking, like, ream of wax out of his ear and just really going to town on her.
Yeah.
I just think of all that nasty green sloppy love.
Sloppy swamp sex.
Just fucking dripping with...
I feel like that's what it's like to have sex in New Orleans.
Dripping with moss.
Yeah, moss sex.
New Orleans, yeah, that's probably... I think there are a lot of people, who feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think there's probably... Shrek, an actual Shrek might live there.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that has been doing the nasty, and they look out their window and there's like an alligator, and they just keep on going. Yeah.
And the alligator just kind of like, winks at you.
Yeah.
Because like everyone's saucy in New Orleans.
It just
everyone has soul.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
bringing it back.
Let's do this.
High school. We're into high school.
So then I started getting into marching band. I formed my first.
You were in marching band.
I was. I went from.
You were just hungry for any sort of like education in music.
That
you could get.
Yeah, and I went. So I went from like marching bass to smaller marching bass, which is less to carry, so people like that more too. Quads.
That was my first. That's
tenors.
Lydia also.
Tenors?
Bass drum.
Bass drum, yeah. And then to snare captain.
Hell yeah, I didn't even do that.
Yeah, that was cool. And then I even played drum set for like I think it was Phantom of the Opera in like one of the orchestra pieces, and maybe another one, I forget what it was. But then I got my own drum set, and so I started I joined my first band, which was called As a drummer, yeah. I got a double bass and that whole thing.
That was my first thing. I started off with a 7-piece kit.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, my first drum set just completely fucking blew up, and my parents were like, I guess he's actually kind of into this shit. We actually like get him a kit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, see, my parents got me a kit too. They got me, which they instantly regretted.
Oh yeah, you got to be a psycho parent to give. Your kid a drum set,
or just completely disconnected with your child and be like, I think they want this. Fuck it, let's make them happy. I don't know. Just don't.
Yeah.
Kill people.
Don't fuck this up. Yeah.
Don't kill people. Just don't.
Yeah.
Columbine just happened. But anyway, so I was very far away from that, but they got me a drum set anyway, and I started learning every System of a Down song.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and then every Metallica song after that, and then I started learning like Nirvana songs. Dave Grohl was a huge.
I like how you went like way like you kind of just went like down in difficulty. Like
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I started hard and then I like went because my taste in music kind of changed. Because I was like I just like found punk rock halfway through high school, and then I also found
what?
Oh, Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, which are still like probably my favorite punk bands, but
they're incredible.
Yeah. And then I also got into my influences like Nirvana. So I got into like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. I was always very into Hendrix, stuff like this. So I just started then getting into the blues because those influence, So I kind of chased that like down like farther and farther as time went along. But at least in high school, I was definitely like smoking weed for the first time, drinking for the first time, and also like realizing that all the expectations that people had of me, like from school, my parents, like authority, all that was something that I was like told I had to abide by, but I think like the kind of like music pouring from like the windows of my heart was a lot louder than the atmosphere that I was trying to survive in. So I felt like I had to listen to that, and instead of conforming to whatever, I felt like, if anything, like pissing off the people that told me that I was bad because I was different and I had to change to be like everyone else. Yeah. So I started
that's a great way to put it. That
yeah. So I I was getting into theater. I was doing musical theater. So I started in like a very macho society, especially when you're in high school. Just Salinas, everyone's like very like there's a lot of Catholic people too with the which I got away from when I was in that actually around the same time I played Jesus in a play. I was like rejecting my Catholicism, much to my mother's chagrin, but we've made peace over it since. But so I started doing things to like piss off the gangsters that used to beat me up. Like I would wear eyeliner type pants. I remember like just kissing a dude in front of them just to make them want to fight me. But at that point, then I was getting to a point where like girls were interested in me, but also like dudes didn't really want to fight me because I was tall now. And like, so it was like, I don't know, I was just finding my bearings in life, and rock and roll was the identity that like I definitely found in the middle of all of it that put all the pieces together. I felt like, well, it's the music of rebellion, right? And I think in pop music there are many outlets for rebellion in many different ways. But
it was the one that was kind of handed to people as like, this is rebellious music, and it was kind of like, it was okay to have that as the rebellious music.
Right, it was, yeah. And like, I wasn't too into the emo thing at the time. I remember thinking that was like just another like type of conformity. Now in retrospect, I'm like, well, some of that music was really, really very good. But at the time,
I agree.
Yeah.
Now listening back to it, I'm like, I was definitely not in that school of thought, but I'm like, this is actually kind of like, I get if people really latched onto these lyrics and this feeling, like, it's a whole thing.
Well, another thing too, I mean, there's a reason why I gravitated more towards like System of a Down than I did like emo music, is because like I don't have a very high voice, you know, so like I had to learn to sing high eventually, but like I just felt like, that's not for me also, you know. And I felt like, well, I know punk rock's about like, you know, like rebellion in a way, but it's also anti-authoritarian, you know. It's kind of there's, you know, a degree of it that's like, you know, thinking for yourself and that sort of thing. And emo was supposed to be, you know, like an extension of punk rock or an evolution of it. But I felt like I just saw a lot of conformity. Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of conformity in punk rock too. You know, like there's a uniform. There's like, you know, that sort of thing. So like I you know, just eventually I felt like trying to find my own identity in music. And, you know, I think there was like a part of me that was like, for a little while, like, and then when I went into my 20s too, was kind of emulating people that I felt were like similarly misunderstood as I felt like I was. Like, for instance, like Jim Morrison was a big one that I think was easy to see in Redlight District, for instance, because I was around that time, actually, right when I left high school, I met Robbie Krieger, and he told me to start a band. He said I reminded him of Jim Morrison, his old singer. So
you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, so that's going to leave an imprint on someone, and
yeah,
you know. But anyway, but you know, all those other people like that, like Kurt Cobain, and you know, like Tom York.
Yeah,
you know, other people who I felt like were like downtrodden, but like made the best of it.
Yeah, they were able to.
Well, except
in
for Kurt.
some way, they were like, well, yeah,
Kurt,
in some way able to like capitalize off it and seemed like they really got to be themselves, which is so much of what music is about, and creating art in general. Mm-hmm.
Or have the freedom to lose themselves completely.
Yes. And people were like, do that. Yeah. Which, now people think about that. They're like, is that like a really good thing to just tell somebody like, yeah, keep on being a total, like, you know, 25-year-old forever. Like,
that is a weird thing about, I think like I kind of realized that towards the end of my 20s, I felt like I was like the sum of what I was being enabled to be. Like I felt like I was like I existed as a symbol to other people, and I want, like, that was my purpose. That was like my validation. And so I felt like I had completely lost myself, and I felt like I had been enabled to like be kind of bad also, because people expected of me, and it made me a character in the reality, and it was like, you know, entertaining, that sort of thing. And, you know, that doesn't make it their fault at all. It just, I lost myself in that. And I can see how you know, musicians who are very popular, very successful, can be enabled to the point where it becomes self-destructive.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. So what were you kind of doing in high school that was maybe not your mom's favorite thing?
Well, I started fucking off school.
And was this because you were starting to just feel like this wasn't for you, starting to really second guess it, or what, was there something like
that? Was it?
That was
it. I was a 4.0 student up until high school, and then I got my hormones, and I started realizing, I just started forming my own identity, and I just kind of cast off like those expectations of me. I felt like I wasn't like I felt like I could never be good enough. And that's something that kind of, that's like a psychological thing that followed me like my whole life until probably even
like good enough in the sense that like I'm never going to be like an SAT person that goes off to do like this sort of thing, or what what way?
I rarely got like enough positive reinforcement for living such a stringent. I also wasn't allowed to go do anything. I wasn't allowed to socialize or like go out beyond my house. So I was only allowed to like hang out with the friends that were around me, and they were like probably the worst kids to like hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also people that in one way or another trapped around one thing.
Oh yeah, they were just abusive people, and they lived in abusive homes, and it was all it was very, very soap opera what was going on in the neighborhood I lived in at that point, like with the adults, and so the kids, of course, that reflected on us, and we were little fuck ups, but like me as the like weird outcast fuck up, like I got inflicted upon by the rest of them,
Yeah.
And then at home also my family life wasn't like very good at that point too, because there was fighting, there was abuse, there was like that sort of thing, which has all been rectified now. Like my family's definitely come a very long way, but there's a thing that happens when kids have kids. They grow up together, and so they don't know how to be. And I used to blame my parents a lot for like not being good examples. But then there was a point where I realized like, oh shit, they were like just growing up. Like I'm fucking 34 almost this year. And I finally feel like I could raise a child, but I'm still not ready. I imagine like if at any point during my 20s I had a child, like, yeah, I was just too steeped in confusion to like, I think to really like be a good parent, and so like I understand where they were coming from. Now they're great, and like we've had this conversation like ourselves privately, and
I think that's a big thing with like meditation and
yes.
people in the Buddhist like philosophy. They're like,
Yes.
okay, so like there's trauma after trauma. Everybody blames their parents for like one thing or another. If you can sit back and kind of start like examining yourself and your thought patterns, maybe you can like start addressing that and kind of like and address it for your parents, address it for their parents, and start really analyzing and making something better out of yourself, or at least just like understanding that there's something that could be better out of life.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that as well. And I feel like my parents, I never had like a bad relationship with my parents, but I feel like my conversations since getting older and like meeting more kinds of people than they ever met and then bringing that back to them really like allowed them to get a better perspective. And I'm glad that our generation is able to do that.
Totally. I'm growing up with my parents still. Like my mom and I talk about like spiritual ideas. She's like so like not a fundamental Catholic anymore. Like she's still like, I think she'll never like leave the faith, and I don't even wish that on her or whatever. But she's still she has more of like a philosophical understanding of it. A lot of times she'll say things to me that sound kind of like naturalist or like Buddhist actually a lot, and she'll say like, yeah, that's basically how I view, like Catholicism. Like, there's a lot the Bible says, but that's an old book.
It is an old book.
Yeah. So
at very least, I think that's one thing that everybody could agree on.
Yeah.
That's an old book.
It's an old ass book. Yeah.
And we're back.
Readjust my microphone situation.
We had to go feed the llamas.
Yeah. Yeah, they're getting ornery out there. It's starting a revolution. They started unionizing. And when your llamas unionize, everything goes bad from there.
Everything goes bad.
Start demanding equal pay. It's just...
To the goats, and that's just not going to happen.
No, dude. They don't even do the same job.
Not even.
Not as useful. Well, the goats, I mean, they work hard.
They do. And they're just cool as shit to watch. Like, llamas are funny for like a second.
They are.
But goats are all day, all night entertainment.
Yeah.
That really probably certain people that might come off as the wrong thing to say.
And those are just a few animals we have in our heavy petting zoo.
Yes.
Right.
Heavy petting zoo.
That's right. Yeah. It's, I mean, clothing optional, am I right?
Yeah. Oof. Here's an idea.
Oh, with the furry population in Santa Cruz?
Oh my God.
Dude, you would not be able to go to sleep.
Yeah, $500 a pop.
People would be shoveling dollar bills into your room naked and greased up just at all hours of the day, just to be present, to just let a pack of chihuahuas run over their naked body.
I wouldn't even doubt it. I've seen some shit on Pacific Avenue, and I'm sure you have as well. I
have. I worked at many places on Pacific Avenue, and nothing really surprises me anymore.
Nope. Nope. Even for a small town, I remember moving here from LA. Like, I was in Hollywood, which is the sphincter of LA.
Oh,
I
yes.
would say.
Well, I mean, that's like LA is a sphincter.
And I came up to visit my friend before I really knew anything, and I completely just let my guard down. I was like, oh, it's just a bunch of hippies, and like this is like all free flowing, and some dude just like comes up and pretends to like start stabbing me with like, it was just like a piece of paper that looked like a knife, or like he decided to like rolled up. I was like, holy shit. And he's like, yeah, like, you know, it's still like you gotta watch yourself. I'm like, what the fuck? Like this is like some like mountain beachy town, like that ain't cool. Like
You're just looking out for you. He's like, oh, next time it won't be paper.
I know. I must have looked too relaxed.
Next time it will be rock, and God help you if it's scissors.
Yeah, I was just completely let my guard down. It can be a weird little town, very much like Venice Beach.
Yes, Venice Beach is full of strange people, beautiful people, and ever so often both.
Yes.
But they have great vintage shopping. I've learned.
They do.
It's where I've got my '60s Chelsea boots.
Oh yeah.
Many of those. Many pair have come imported from Venice.
Imported to Venice. Imported.
Probably from actual Venice.
Oh. Yeah.
Because
do they make boots there?
Oh, in Italy?
Well, I mean in Venice. I was like, what do they do there other than just like kind of like hang around their swamp?
Well, you know, I don't know if leather goods are very swamp. It is kind of
Venice, Italy.
Yeah.
Would they row?
No, yes, and they sing. They have the striped shirts.
It's supposed to smell like shit, right?
I just assume from everything that I've read and heard that all of Europe smells like shit. But I feel like I come in Salinas, everything smells like shit anyway because it's all like cow fields.
But at least you know what it is.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like the grab bag of dietary habits that you can experience from plumes of human feces. And, you know, you could probably tell what kind of person you could kick it with from the smell of their BM. Mm. I feel like yeah, I feel like that's probably like a primal thing. I mean, dogs do it a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we need to get back to square one, man. We need to just go right back to the body, right back to the ancients had some things right. They might have been misgiven, but you know, there's some wisdom there. But I think beyond that, beyond Samaria, Mesopotamia, I think, what about when we were hunter-gatherers?
Yeah.
How brilliantly feral were we? How much like crazy, just hairy period sex were all those fucking just like what would you call them? Just like I don't want to use the wrong term here, but I'm thinking it's not. I wouldn't call them cave people because I don't think they actually lived in caves, but more like I think they were kind of in a way the pinnacle of like fitness. I feel like if you took a person from hunter-gatherer roving bands, just before the confines of soft society, and you put them next to just a typical person who works out, I feel like they would be able to just rip your arms off with a thought.
I fucking agree. Also, I just have to say the sounds you were making as you were thinking about that was like really...
Sometimes that's how I express myself.
It said more than any of the words you just said. I was like, whoa.
I mean, you know...
that was amazing.
I might not have found the right word, but the sounds... I mean, words are dead. We made them up. Fuck the dictionary. Words are dead.
Is that one of your newer songs? Is that...
No, one of my newer songs actually forgoes that premise and just starts making sounds the whole time. There are no lyrics in English or any given language as we know it now. It's more so just, you know, making expressive noises. Who needs words?
Who needs them?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I felt bad because I often don't know lyrics to songs, especially songs that like I've played in bands and I love.
Oh, me too. I feel, as a lyricist and a singer, I feel bad when I try to like sing songs that I love and hold close to me, and I just don't know the lyrics.
Yeah, and then I think it's.
What does that say?
I don't know.
The music like is the intoxicant that first like seizes your brain, and then that like after you've like paid attention to it long enough, you start to wonder what it's about. Because some songs, the lyrics are the forefront, right?
Yeah.
Some songs like they wouldn't be anything if they didn't have good lyrics, right?
Well, yeah, I agree. And I think it always comes down to even just some sort of musical thing for me. But I think about music wrong in some ways. Like I'm more about like kind of the rhythm, and but I'm always like, yeah, but I also love the lyrics, and I'm like, I don't know them though.
Look, there's some songs. There are a lot of songs that are just rhythm and like lyrics.
I mean,
you from an early American example, you have Son House. Don't you mind people grinning in your face?
And isn't that
Don't you mind?
Jack White's favorite song, right?
It is, yeah. And that's also like that.
That's sick.
That sort of like field holler sort of thing is what kind of inspired the Redlight District's opening song on Blackmail.
Yeah.
That you actually
played the chains on.
Yeah, you did. You brought the chains into the studio. And I got chains.
I got off my motorcycle and I got thrust into. They were like, get in the studio, and I was like, oh, I should not be doing this, but oh, look at this, I'm playing the chains. And
you're playing the chains in the field holler.
Who was all there? That was an incredible little.
There was Josh Hoover, who writes for Must Have Media and also the Bay Bridged. Must Have Media is his media company, and then the Bay Bridged is like an indie blog website, like outlet out of San Francisco. Very, very, very hip, very informative, very up to date, worth checking out. He was there. I think. Definitely. So there was a whole band. There was also somebody like I remember completely random because I wrote down everyone's names, and that's somewhere in a document in my house.
Well, we had, the Strange Hotels guys were there.
Were they there?
I'm like almost positive they were around in that time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know that makes sense. There was. Damn, you know what? I'm gonna have to find that. We'll have an addendum.
There was a lot of people like who were on that.
It was
for context. Can you kind of explain this song?
So this song, yes, yeah. So the song is it starts off the album. It's kind of I wrote it actually on banjo.
The Redlight District album.
The Redlight District, right? So my acid rock band. I have a few going now that I have a few irons in the fire, but the Redlight District, who was actually reuniting in November at Moe's Alley.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so with Strange Hotels, actually.
Well, that's fucking rad.
So I
will be there.
Yeah, so there's some news to drop right there. But anyway, the album started off with a song that I actually wrote on banjo. I was living on my friend's couch, which I feel like doesn't really define a specific year, because I feel like there were years that I was just kind of couch surfing. But I wrote on banjo, and I wanted to like make kind of like a song that was like allegorical about the relationship between authority figures when it comes to like the interface of like law versus like spirituality, and like and criminality and this whole sort of thing, and so like this like kind of narrative took shape that I didn't really like think through too well. It was more just like kind of something that just kind of came about, and I just went with it. Mm-hmm. But then I felt like, well, the banjo isn't really like selling it anymore. So then I took out the banjo, but it was still in my head. It was kind of I was obsessed with it for days, and I remember coming to the band and saying like, oh, well, I there's a song where I want to be stomping and clapping, and like I want all you guys to hum, and like I plan to like make the audience do this too, to lead them in doing this, to join in, to also be part of the song, because there would be no song if it weren't stomping, clapping, and humming, which everyone needs to contribute to. So then the audience does it just as well as the band. Like we're barely playing anything. Mm-hmm. The only person who's doing anything this point is me trying to like narrate the story, sing it. So yeah, it was very based on like the field haulers that the spirituals that like slaves in the South would create, and and I think so. Then eventually it kind of got shelved, or it wasn't really like, it didn't land, I think, with like members of the band at the time, or it just didn't like, I don't really recall. I remember when I think it was when Jaime and Nano left, and then Kiyoki and Ravi signed on. I had a lot more creative freedom because, well, I had started the band in the first place as like something to try to like, as like kind of an outlet for like all these like visions I would have. And then it became a little bit hard.
How old were you when you started Redlight District?
It's like 22, 23.
Okay, so
yeah,
a few years after high school, and you were rolling around like Salinas, Santa Cruz area.
I was actually, so I moved to Santa Cruz actually to pursue music because I was living with this dude who was signed to, I think, Warner Brothers Records in the 90s, and he said, he just like believed in me so much. He said, if you like picked up and left tomorrow and pursued what you're doing, like I wouldn't be upset. Like if I had rent to pay or whatever, because I feel like that's what you need to do. I think you should do it. I believe in you. And my band before that had fizzled, and so I was like really kind of like at the end of my rope. I was like the most depressed I'd ever been. I think I would like started actually like trying heroin, shooting it up, and I tried it 3 times before I decided, well, this is a really bad idea. I didn't like it in the first place, the first time I tried it, and then like by the 3rd time it started to get better, and I decided like, oh, well, this is stupid. I already have enough problems. I'm so depressed. I should make something of this instead of being succumbed.
Yeah.
To it, and so then I decided to just move. Actually, I think I got out of the house actually for a little bit and went to Santa Cruz, and I remember seeing like a lot of culture there, which I wasn't exposed to as much in Salinas or Monterey, especially in Salinas. Like it's with such like a violent history, people kind of stick to themselves, and there's a lot of pressure creates diamonds in a way, right? And so there's a lot of economic, social, racial pressure there. And, but I feel like also because of that pressure, it's hard for communities to form. I feel like there's a lot of competition. I feel like, it's not.
It sounds like hard living.
Yeah, I named the band Redlight District actually after a part of Salinas. My grandfather, the aforementioned gangster, used to fondly refer to what is now a tent city in like the worst part of. So it's like Skid Row, basically. He used to refer to it as the Red Light District because in the 70s it was popping. You could get drugs there. There were like, prostitutes, and he loved both those things. So, so I kind of like named it the band the Red Light District because it was emblematic of like the disparity between districts in a town, even like you have politicians gerrymandering congressional districts so that they can like isolate votes and this whole thing, and oftentimes like funding to education will be cut to like districts as if they were like a blind spot like law.
Yeah.
So right next to the Skid Row, Chinatown, they call it in Salinas, Red Light District, as my grandfather so affectionately referred to it as. Just a street over is Main Street, and it's bustling. It's fine. It's good. In fact, just a block over from there is Old Town, and Old Town is super now gentrified, and they even like put up a wall so people can't cross the train tracks from Chinatown into the rest of the city.
Weird.
Which is because the people would cross the train tracks, buy drugs in Chinatown, then come out. They wanted to really like isolate it physically. It's very strange. So so I named the band after that because I had specific social issues that I wanted to tackle when it came to writing songs and talking to audiences and that whole thing, which is why I feel like that was like my roots in punk rock, like that I kind of upheld in like an acid rock band, basically, you know. Yeah.
He has had some punk, for sure.
There was some aggression,
there's
yeah.
elements of that.
Yeah, kind of like, you know,
songs, yeah.
like the Mars Volta, they were like psychedelic, but they were like aggressive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there was a spirit there.
For sure.
Yeah.
So 22, you kind of, so then you were off in Salem doing Redlight District, and Redlight District was doing really well in Santa Cruz, and
played festivals, went down to Hollywood, played Whiskey A Go Go, which was a huge thing for me because after Robbie Krieger giving me his blessing to start a band, that's like where the doors really like broke, you know. So that was a huge thing for me. And then I felt like that sort of influence was complete. Like I felt like the circle had been complete, kind of. And so then I moved on from it, kind of. But I don't know if it was...
It's always nice. I've had a couple of those moments in music where I was like, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
Like,
complete.
There was some weird thing in my head where like I needed to do that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
What has helped you through COVID? Why do you still play music? What does your life look like with music now, and how has it helped you and kind of the people around you? And final thoughts.
That is a very good question. So through COVID, actually, like I feel a little bit guilty because I think I was one of the few people that had the time of my life during COVID. I was able to write so much, and I got married, and it actually became the happiest I've ever been. I've been the happiest I've ever been since. Even like before then, I think I just hit a stride of creativity. Philosophically, a lot of things like fell into place. I felt like I had a period where like self-destructed at the end of Red Light, which is why Red Light fell apart. I became very suicidal. I just, I succumbed to mania and depression and the volley between them, and which led to a lot of like reflection, which led to a lot of like kind of trying to consolidate all the things that I believed in, all the things I understood about reality, all the things that I learned in my voyage of like tripping acid constantly to try to, touch ground inside of myself, like to try to like understand why reality can seem so difficult, to understand what reality even means. And there's a sort of like distortion that you can encounter in flight. You can be kind of destroyed in flight, like a kind of like a makeshift aircraft, especially if you don't know what you're navigating or how to do it. In many ways, it's inherently makeshift, trying to navigate the mystery that is your psyche. A lot of people don't do that work. A lot of people just kind of, make do with what is enough. A lot of people don't check their beliefs. And, I'm not here to judge one against the other, but all I know is that...
In some ways, I think it's easier. And in some ways, I personally feel sometimes a little jealous of people that are just like, this is my life, this is what I do. I find the happiness in like the small things, and like they're set at 19.
Yeah,
and they like just sail. Some
people's personality types too, like they're not artistic. They're not, don't have, maybe they have a fascination with abstraction, but like, appreciate simplicity, and that's totally fine too. I just know with me, like there was always like the desire to understand myself and other people and this reality we interface, and after a certain point, it became troublesome for me because I became overloaded. I became foreign to myself. I didn't really like understand who I was. And then after I came to, I guess, a climax in that, I feel like I succeeded in killing myself and my old self, because there were a lot of like ugly habits that I realized that I was like holding on to. And there was some like, indulgences and like egotism To believe it or not, it makes it, is not completely gratifying anymore to like talk about myself as much as I have during this podcast. But, for the sake of like relaying information, I feel like, it's a worthwhile thing to do. And,
and if anything, that's kind of a goal with this, is to make people feel understood. There's other people like you. This is creating art, creating music, and being a person that people tend to gravitate towards. Takes a lot of mental checking and mental work. And if you don't pay attention to it, it's just going to fucking bulldoze you over. And I got to that point, and that's pretty much why I started this podcast. I'm like, I want to figure out what other people are doing. I want other people to start connecting in some way and start relaying these stories, because that's
great. The
cathartic. Like it's
absolutely, and that's that one thing about music that remained for me, is that I realized that like, well, if I remove the ego gratification from the things that like I was experiencing, whether or not I knowingly accepted them at the time, now that I'm aware of them, I feel like, well, what is it I'm trying to do anyway? And so I redefined my idea of success. Was able to finally feel good about myself, because it wasn't my image of myself, my solitude, and my self-worth wasn't dependent on outside factors anymore, which allowed me to find love. It also allowed me to experiment with music in a way that was different and that had less expectations placed on the outcome than I had before. So now when I write music, it's a lot more explorative of what it is that I'm trying to express, and less trying to fit into like any sort of like genre, or like, come off of it as any of the aesthetic or whatever, which is kind of why like, so my current project that I'm focusing a lot on is Oedipus And The Motherfuckers.
Yes.
It started off just kind of like, well, Cage, who's a drummer, and it's just a two-piece. It's him and I. It's also a very good songwriter and a very great, performer, and
he's got a great voice.
Yeah, just and a great dude all around. And we made a blood oath once, just probably drunk as fuck, but like, to like, oh, we're gonna start a band one day, and we totally made good on it on accident, because one day we were like into the studio that we both rent out, and we finally got fed up with like the paralysis of analysis. And I think we had just like watched that video, Chicken in the Corn. That guy who like played, he had a tiny desk concert, but he just plays a one string guitar, and he had a whole song, Chicken in the Corn. A lot of songs. I
know who exactly you're talking about.
It redefined our understanding of what even a song is.
Yeah.
And it sort of like what the Dadaist movement with art redefined what art means. Like, right? It's like what the artist is trying to express, not necessarily what society is saying art must be. So like, anyway, so at that point, then we like kind of just like started writing. This is right before the pandemic hit. We just kind of like ejaculated a song together.
Yeah, I think that's very. That's a great way to describe you guys. When I saw that video of you guys playing in your studio together, I was like, fuck yeah, because that was like in midst of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
One of the few things I saw that I was like, thank God somebody's doing something. To be in a good band is just a perfect storm of something.
Yeah. I think I think one of the reasons why I think I've had such good luck in the past year and so much happiness is because I feel like I was writing good music that I meant with somebody that was one of my best friends, so like I feel like that like definitely reflects in the music, but it's also like easier with a two-piece because it's just like you and someone else, like. Yeah,
that was my favorite band. Like in high school, I started off with a two-piece with my buddy who's a photographer now, but I was like, let's like go off to LA together, and he's like, I'm gonna do something else. He's like, you're still a kick-ass guitarist. I'm like, we should do that sometime, and maybe one day we will. Like, I'm jealous of you guys because that looks so fucking fun.
Jam with me.
Yeah, I'm down.
Jam with us.
Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I also love playing synths and shit like that too.
Oh, dude,
I get into the synthesis.
Yeah, the synthesizing.
I got my little fucker right there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice little controller there. Oh yeah, what's on the knobs?
It's like the cheapest analog synth you can get.
Dude.
Fucking fun.
Analog. All right, we're gonna have to play around with that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's wrap this up. I
do it.
told it when we took the break. I was like, yeah, we're gonna probably go 10, 15 minutes. That was totally lying.
Oh, I knew
Yeah,
I knew that was wrong.
you have very astute observations about people, Steve, and I think that's why people love watching you play music. I think you really relate to people, and I think you pick up on the musicians that you like idolize, or maybe that's the wrong word, but
No,
you
I
pick
think
up on
I think that's a fine word. I mean, you know, like
the musicians you gain inspiration from.
yeah. I mean, there definitely is like a sense of idolatry, or there has been. I mean, like now at this point, now I definitely view influences as like people who had the right thing going. I think there I've gone through phases of life where there was idolatry, but like yeah, I feel like I think that like art is the great conversation, right? That's like one of the classic like kind of phrases for it, or a colloquial term for it that like tends to like come up. If you look at whole epochs in history, you have two ways to view them. I think I think there's like politics, which also coincides with like the social aspects of things, and then that socially reverberates into the art, and the art is the social aspect of the politics kind of responding or reacting to what's going on. So like I think it's like in a way a very important thing. People are very terrified of not existing. Like to think that we could all be wiped out, or even to think personally that we could die is like like a looming thing that people try to not think about all the time. But accepting like the inevitabilities of life as a part of life itself is just fine. And so then from that perspective, we must like look at what it is that brought meaning to our life, because for all we know, life could have no inherent meaning. So other than what we of course like find in there, experience it. So whether or not there's our name attached to it, if we leave something that circulates in the lifeblood of humankind and hopefully the rest of the world and the planet, then something that circulates that is positive, then hopefully we've done something okay. By the time we die, I consider myself somebody who already feels that sort of success. And I'm going to keep trying to pursue it, because I keep wanting to put good things out there, because I think everybody is misunderstood. And I think there's also something familiar about everybody. And even though
everybody.
Yeah.
There's you have a very wide demographic of people that love you and your music. Like I've seen some
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh man, yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm gonna go do a Hell's Angels funeral tonight, but then I have
that was and then
I have like, I don't know, whatever, some bougie ass event right after that.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna go down to the local bar and then on to the next thing. You're just like,
I remember actually playing a show or a festival in Salem, Oregon. And I was going off on some tangent, as I want to do, like during one of Redlight songs, and then this like Republican dude came up after me, and he was like, "You know what? You're right. I don't think people I disagree with, like left people and right people, like I don't think we want such different things. It's just kind of the way that we go about it. I think communication. I think you're right. We need to just like talk about these things."
Yeah.
I was like, "Damn, fuck. I like." Because that person like identified openly to me, as somebody that I definitely disagree with, but like I was able to speak to them in a way somehow that like made them feel like they weren't alienated, even though I was talking about what I believe in. So that's like kind of an interesting thing,
Totally. I just played a show on Catalina Island this last weekend, and
nice
for 4th of July. It was it was a great gig with Clayton Joseph Scott. Great dude, great musician. His music is very upbeat, happy. Let's bring people together. All this stuff. There's this big, huge, like he just had these like the biggest ring I've ever seen. Just like this dude, kind of had a presence about him. He walked on the floor and he had a huge MAGA hat on, and he's just like rocking it, came straight off of his yacht out in the harbor. And he was just vibing to the music, and he tipped us like 4 times, and he just really loved it. And I'm like, the fuck is going on? Like,
Only you know what I believe.
Yeah, that, and just like inherently the music was like not. I think
that speaks to the fucking unifying factor of music, man. It's like it isn't like necessarily charged, you know, like specifically one way. Like, I mean, I think people who make music tend to be a little bit more sensitive to certain issues, but like, you know, like when it comes down to the music flowing out of someone listening to it, it kind of like transcends that sort of thing. It's connective, you know. So it's like until you start talking about what the dividing factor is, it's a unifying factor, you know, like it's kind of interesting.
A great example, like, because you were mentioning earlier, System of a Down. I know plenty of people that are very much in the military industrial complex or associated with them that fucking love them. And I'm like, dude, do you know what any of those songs are about? Like, at all? Like, even have you kind of listened to the lyrics?
Cage and I wrote a couple of them, but a faux System of a Down song, which is called Hollywood Genocide. So it's funny because I feel like picking up on the tropes. They definitely like punctuate things with the word war. Yeah. Because they're very like, yeah, especially being Armenian American, like, you know, very like aware of the perceptions of people who are possibly, you know, Middle Eastern, or like just also the genocide that happened in Armenia, and like the way that they were. That, like, you know, Armenian American families and just generally Armenian families that have been like affected by it, and just like the whole like war culture of war, you know, and how also like it's not always recognized. Like, you know, they're war heroes. They're like it's just a strange thing. Yeah, I think they're entrenched in that whole thing. They're very aware of it, and that's you know, that's one thing.
It is really all in some way tied in together, roped in together of like. In some way, yeah, and it's impossible to say.
Yeah, you unpack
you have me conceptualizing much larger than I can really like fathom to put into a microphone.
Oh yeah, I mean you unpack the convention of war, especially in modern times, modern politics, and what do you get? You get a lot of old people with power creating something that they'll never have to experience, usually for some sort of benefit that is either land power or monetary gain, and it usually is monetary gain because there are always so many special interests involved. You've got energy companies, weapon companies. There's always some sort of like, you know, setting up like a coup. So there's like some sort of like politician that we can puppet that can be set up as like a shill for us and our interests. And then what happens usually, they turn around and then they've learned the arts of warfare, they rebel, then they're an enemy of the, I mean,
and then we get to sell more guns and, you know, go off and it's a cycle. It's a bad cycle of violence, and it's down on the community level and it's down on the worldwide level. And
it's that sort of thing where I feel like I mean, the military-industrial complex, as you mentioned before, there's also the prison-industrial complex, privatized prisons, the way that laws are kind of formed to specifically, you know, attack certain demographics, or like, you know, I mean, a lot of people know about Roger Stone, the Nixon administration trying to, basically created the war on drugs to try to target left-leaning white people, minorities, and I think that's it. But because like things like drugs, marijuana were associated with those types, and also like more people who are more in poor societies are more likely to possess or like circulate them, because I mean that's like just kind of like one of a few opportunities that you have. Either that or you join the military, and that's another complex. And so they lock up people. You get basically modern slavery. I mean, cents on the hour for like labor, you know, and privatized prisons. There's so many special interests that go into that with food, so on and so forth. So basically what it comes down to for me is that I think humankind is having a really hard time adjusting to like evolve beyond like kind of the like the animus that we are half of. Like if you see us halfway between animal and God, right, where we're like have this like heightened sense of self-awareness and this like, you know, ability to be self-aware, ability to understand concepts that aren't physical things, like free will. That's not a physical thing, but you know, like people argue whether or not we have it, you know. That's more of like an evolved state of mind. We are still corporeal beings that are like very much, you know, locked in our bodies, bound to our flesh with desires and fears, you know, and that breeds, when unchecked, breeds jealousy and violence. And I want to see a psychological revolution. That's what I think that we need. That's what I think we need. I think, and I don't know if we're even close to it. I can't say that, but I know that is.
I think something's happening. I think
people are turning on a lot more.
Yeah, it could just be me, and I feel like I'm starting to turn like a new corner, and I think the people kind of around me are, and starting to be more aware of their actions and their habits, and how it really plays into all of society. I love that, and I think this is a great place to start winding down.
I agree. I didn't mean to go off on a huge tangent at the end there. I know it's like
I want to end this by saying I think we should do this again. I
agree.
I think would be also another thing, and I want to start doing this with the podcast, is doing Twitch streams and play some music too, and also talk, and like, you know, we could have Cage on, we could have we could have, you know, start doing some.
There
would
be no end if Cage and I and you were here. There would just it'd have to be a 24-hour thing.
I get it, and I think some people would even tune in.
I think so.
Yeah, this has been beautiful talking. This is exactly the kind of the thing that I want to do, and thank you for sticking with it. Is there anything that you would like to tell any of the listeners, that anything going on you want to advertise, anything you want to just let them know what's going on in your life, what's happening? I
think that they've heard about the Redlight District. They've heard about Oedipus And The Motherfuckers.
So that's coming back in November.
Yes.
Oh, if you guys play a show, it's going to sell out.
Yeah, I think so.
It's going to sell out hard.
Yeah. It'll be fun, man.
That is going to be a good time. You better rent out an Airbnb now if you want to catch that Moe's Alley whenever that date it's plugged.
Yeah. So other than, I guess, like the listeners have heard about the projects and things that I have going on. I think if there's one thing that I would have to say in parting to people listening, is to take off your clothes. Rub yourself head to toe with CBD butter. Nice. All right? Smoke a fucking large coffin nail of THC. Try to get as close to just pure THC in that joint as you can. And just fucking think about the things that you believe, and think about why you believe them.
Wasn't that great? Thanks for listening to Breaking North. This is Zen again. Consider joining my Patreon, patreon.com/breakingnorth. It really helped the show out. You know, let's take the show to the limits. Let's see where we can go with it. Let's get saucy. Make sure to share this episode if you liked it, and keep listening. Shows every single Wednesday until they're not, but I'm pretty sure every single Wednesday. I have months booked up. Let's do this. It's happening. It's happening, baby. You have an incredible day. Thanks.